Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing the mid-year book check-in tag. This tag has a couple different names and I'm not sure if there's a couple different versions of it. The version that I am using today, I found when I watched Pages of Haley's video of this. I will link her video down below, but in her video she also links the two creators of at least these specific questions, which I will link below as well. Anyway, always excited to do this tag. So this year I set my goal for 50 books, and so far I have read 29, and Goodreads says I am 2 books ahead of schedule, which is great. 29 is kind of an annoying number though. I really wish it was 30, just to like round it out, you know, but anyway, 29. So I have not thought of these ahead of time, of my answers ahead of time. I am just going to be looking at the questions and then looking at my little Goodreads, reading challenge books and seeing what comes to mind. So the first question is, best book you've read so far in 2021? And it is hard to choose one book. I did read, oh man. I was going to say nothing I read, because the majority of the books that I've read out of these 29, I read either so far in July or in June. I did a bunch of reading and I barely read anything in the first couple months of the year. So I was gonna say this might be easier to answer because there's not a bunch of good books from early in the year, but I did read a thriller fave at the beginning of the year. Okay, I got it. My overall favorite book that I've read so far this year is The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. Turn of the Key, well, first of all, I love thrillers, especially in the last year or two. I really think I've come to realize that that is my favorite genre, adult thriller or horror mystery, that kind of thing. That's a lot of what I read and that's a lot of what I rate highly just because I like that genre anyway, but The Turn of the Key hit different. Okay, so The Turn of the Key is loosely based / inspired off of The Turn of the Screw. And The Turn of the Screw story, the Netflix show The Haunting of Bly Manor, is inspired by Turn of the Screw. So this all went down because last Halloween time, I wanted to rewatch Haunting of Hill House because it's one of my favorite shows of all time. So scary, gets me every time. And those same creators put out The Haunting of Bly Manor, which I personally didn't like as much, but it made me want to read Turn of the Screw. So then I read Turn of the Screw and then realized that Turn of the Key is related to Turn of the Screw. So I was like, I should just read that now that I've read Turn of the Screw. And although I didn't love Turn of the Screw, I think it really added to my enjoyment of The Turn of the Key. Having the kind of background knowledge of what the book is based on and what it's inspired by. But all that being said, Turn of the Key is kind of like a thriller, spooky, ghosty, haunted house situation. So it follows this young adult woman who kind of gets this too good to be true opportunity to nanny for these kids at this really, really nice house. And she gets paid really, really well, almost too well. And she gets to live here in this amazing place. And of course, it's not all that it seems. There was just some scenes in there that really, if I think about them, give me chills. And I don't know if it'd be so scary for everyone, because I know, some people, there's certain horror things that scare people more than other people. And for me, I have a recurring nightmare about break-ins, or I'll have stress dreams about being chased and not being able to open a door fast enough or things like that. And so kind of having someone in the house or having someone break into a house, that's just something that hits really hard for me and is a weird fear that I have that I love seeing in books because it's scarier to me, I think, than an average person. So this book had a lot of those kind of vibes of like her being alone in this house and like weird things happening. I just thought it was so well done. Like my first 5-star of the year, and maybe my favorite book of the year, we'll see. But it definitely stands out to me as like, I think I can confidently say that that's probably my favorite. Definitely my favorite Ruth Ware book, but also my favorite kind of like haunted house type thriller book that I've read. And I just found out the other day on Twitter that Ruth Ware did sell the movie rights to, I forget what production company, but they're working on a script for it. And I really hope that that movie is well done, because I do think that book would make an amazing movie. So anyway, talked about that one way too long. Let's move on to the next question. Best sequel you've read so far in 2021. I am not a big like fantasy person, and I think that's where a lot of sequels come in. So I've only read 2 sequels this year. I think I'm gonna go with Crooked Kingdom. I didn't like it as much as Six of Crows, but I thought it was a really solid sequel. I love the way that the whole series like wrapped up at the end of Crooked Kingdom, and there was like some really like amazing small moments in that book that like I loved. There was like 2 distinct, I remember, like small moments with Inej and Kaz, and another one with Jesper and Wylan. Definitely Crooked Kingdom, but then again, I don't have that many to choose from for this. I do also, by the way, have a reading vlog for the Six of Crows duology. I don't know if it's up before this video or it's going to be up after this video, but I will link it when it is up, or if it is already up, if you're interested. New release you haven't read yet but want. Actually, see, okay, I am not good with keeping up with new releases. Something that I found out about actually very recently is the book Small Favors by Erin A. Craig. And Erin A. Craig wrote The House of Salt and Sorrows, which was like one of my favorite reads from 2019. It's a retelling of The 12 Dancing Princesses, which is like my absolute favorite fairy tale ever. And one of the blurbs says, from the New York Times bestselling author of House of Salt and Sorrows comes a mesmerizing and chilling novel that's The Village meets Needful Things, about what lurks in the shadows of the people you think you know. And can I just say, I love the movie The Village, and also Needful Things is probably my second favorite Stephen King. So that blurb is perfect. It was targeted just for me. Ellery Downing is waiting for something to happen. Life in isolated Amity Falls, surrounded by an impenetrable forest, has a predictable sameness. Her days are filled with tending to her family's beehives, chasing after her sisters, and dreaming of bigger things, while her twin Samuel is free to roam as he wishes. Early town settlers fought off monstrous creatures in the woods, and whispers that the creatures still exist keep the Downings and their neighbors from venturing too far. When some townsfolk go missing on a trip to fetch supplies, a heavy unease settles over the falls. Strange activities begin to plague the town, and as the seasons change, it's clear that something is terribly wrong. The creatures are real, and they're offering to fulfill the residents' deepest desires, however grand, for just a small favor. These seemingly trifling demands, however, hide sinister intentions. Soon, Ellery finds herself in a race against time to stop Amity Falls, her family, and the boy she loves from going up in flames. So that definitely sounds a lot like Needful Things, but I believe it's also loosely inspired by Rumpelstiltskin. So I'm just really excited. Oh wait, what question did I just do? New release you haven't read yet but want to? Did I skip a question? Because number 4 is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. And I'll use that one for that one. Number 3 was new release you haven't read yet but want to. There's a lot. It's not like a super new release, but I've heard really mixed things about One by One by Ruth Ware, but I still really do want to read that. And like now that I've finished the Six of Crows duology, I really want to read the King of Scars duology. But again, that's not like super new, but we're just gonna go with that. I'm taking way too long to answer these questions. Okay, biggest disappointment. Oh man. Oh, yes, biggest disappointment, The Project by Courtney Summers. I was very hyped for this book because I love Sadie by Courtney Summers, and I liked, what's it called? Cracked Up to Be by Courtney Summers. I enjoyed that one as well. And so when I heard that she was coming out with a book about like a cult, I was like, this was made for me, but I gave it a 2. It was not great. The thing that got me the most, well, one, the plot was kind of boring and the pacing was slow, but what really drove me nuts is the chapters were titled with years, but they switched back and forth between these two sisters. So I'm like, one, why couldn't you have just titled them with the sister's name whose perspective it was? But two, sometimes there'd be a year where both sisters are living in. Like, let's say, I can't remember exactly, but let's say like 2013 belongs to one sister, 2010 belongs to another sister, but 2012 belongs to both of them. So you'd have chapters with 2012 who you still have to figure out which sister is the one who's talking. Like, you have to decode it. So I'm like, could you not have made this easier for me? So that was infuriating. But I was like just interested enough in it that I wanted to know how it ended, but then the ending was still like, I should have DNF'd it. The ending wasn't that satisfying. I was so disappointed. Number 6, biggest surprise. I think my biggest surprise would be Horrid by Katrina Leno. Just because I had not heard a single person really talk about this, and it has very mixed reviews, but I absolutely loved it. I do have a review coming out for this book where I'll go into a lot more detail about it. But I went in with really low expectations, and the first like 25 pages, I was like not vibing at all, and I almost DNF'd it. And then I stuck with it, and now that book literally means so much to me. Like, I just love it. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I'll explain it in my book review for that book, but that was definitely my biggest surprise, because I also don't think I've read a Katrina Leno, and I know she usually writes like contemporary, I'm pretty sure. So I was just overall very shook. Like, what an impact, I think. This book was very impactful for me. Favorite new author, debut, or new to you? So this maybe kind of doesn't count because the first book I read by this author, I read it in December of last year. So technically they're not new to me this year, but whatever. Riley Sager. I haven't read much by Riley Sager. I read Home Before Dark in December of last year. Loved it. And I read Lock Every Door really, really early this year and loved it. I read that in like one sitting. I loved it so much. So they're definitely on my radar. I do want to read more Riley Sager books. If you have any recommendations, because I know there's quite a few that I haven't read, leave them down below, because I kind of don't know which one to pick up next. All right, number 8, newest fictional crush. I don't really get fictional crushes, to be honest, anymore. I just have the one that I always have, which is Peeta from The Hunger Games. I've had a crush on Peeta since The Hunger Games came out. Recently, I don't really. Probably Kaz from Six of Crows. Six of Crows, Crooked Kingdom. I think if I were like a 17-year-old in Ketterdam, I know I would have a crush on Kaz. Like, I would see him from far away with his outfit and his like cane with the crow on it, and just like his whole vibe. Like, I know that I would be obsessed with him in real life if I lived in that book. So we're gonna go with Kaz Brekker. He just has such a vibe. All right, newest favorite character. I would say, honestly, both of the main characters from Heartstopper. I love both of them so much, but especially Charlie, especially after Heartstopper Volume 3, Charlie like holds a really special place in my heart. So definitely Charlie is my newest favorite character. Number 10, book that made you cry. I have not cried at anything this year, but I think the book that probably made me the closest to crying would be The Ghosts We Keep by Mason Deaver. This book's just very heavy, and they had like a spot in the back where the author was talking about their, like how this book is kind of based on their personal, like something that happened personally to them. And I went into this book completely blind. I didn't even read the back cover. I don't know. I'm assuming what I think in my head is a spoiler is probably on the back cover, but I just don't. I would encourage you to go into it blind, so I'm not going to say what it is. It's just very heavy, dealing with like sibling relationships, and our main character just goes through a lot of stuff. I really, really felt for them, so Definitely that one. Book that made you happy. Okay, this is a fun one. A lot of the books I read, like, if I give a book a 4 or 5 star, like, they did make me happy. Like, I really enjoyed reading them. But one that just, like, gave me such, like, happy, like, cozy feels was So This Is Love, which is part of the Twisted Tales series, which I've heard most people, when I've heard them talk about it, like, I've heard people review the Mulan one, and I had tried listening to the audiobook a couple years ago for the Beauty and the Beast one, and I didn't like it. I was just looking for something to read one night on the iPad, and so I was going through Libby, looking at what ebooks were, like, already available, and I wanted something, like, either contemporary or just something that, like, I don't have to use my brain a lot for to read right before bed. I picked up So This Is Love because, if you don't know, Cinderella is my favorite Disney movie. I am obsessed with Cinderella. My bridal shower was Cinderella themed. Like, Cinderella is everything to me. So I was like, I'm gonna give this a try because, like, I love every movie version of Cinderella, like the musical, everything. And what do you know? I loved this. I loved this. It was so cute. Was the writing amazing? No. It was just so fun. And so I think these books, like, I think it's kind of hit or miss. It's like, it just kind of depends how they twist it, I guess. And so I think they definitely changed the right things for this, because from what I've heard of the other ones, like, sometimes they change it in, like, a really weird way, where it's like, why are we reading this? The plot for this one was unable to prove that she's the missing princess and unable to bear life under Lady Tremaine any longer, Cinderella starts work at the palace as a seamstress. However, when Cinderella finds herself witness to a grand conspiracy to take the king and the prince out of power, she is faced with questions of love and loyalty to the kingdom. So it's like, what if she never tried on the glass slipper? And just the way that, like, the characters were described exactly like they look in the movie. Like, the Duke looked exactly like he does in the Disney movie. And so it was just fun. Like, in my head, it was just, like, the same animation from the Disney movie, just, like, I got, like, a bonus movie, if that makes sense. And they had, like, kind of like some of the, like, famous dialogue and stuff from the movie, but, like, put into this. So it was very much kind of like a Cinderella fan fiction vibe, but I just loved it. I just love Cinderella. So it was so fun. Number 12, most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received. Honestly, I don't think I've bought a book this year. I have been gifted a couple. I'm really trying to just use the library. Like, I'll buy a book if I've read it from the library already and I really, really liked it. Like, I'm going to do that with Horrid. I really want to get a physical copy because I know I'm going to reread it and I'd like to, like, annotate it and stuff. But, like, new books that I haven't read yet, I haven't been buying. But I do have a really nice copy of, and I wouldn't say that this cover is, like, gorgeous. Like, there's a lot of other book covers I think are a lot prettier that I own, but I didn't get them this year. But of the ones I received this year, probably Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie. I really love yellow and orange, so I think that's a beautiful cover. All right, so last question. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? I have like six or seven thrillers on my shelves that I haven't read yet that I really want to read. And I have 2 Agatha Christie's, including this one, that I haven't read yet that I want to read by the end of the year. I do want to read the King of Scars duology. I want to read that new Erin A. Craig book. But aside from that, really, I just kind of want to see what I'm in the mood for. I definitely want to, like, pick up some horror books in the fall time, read some more Riley Sager probably. But yeah, those are the ones that, like, specifically the titles of. I'm like, I do want to read those this year. Yeah, I've just been kind of going with the flow with, like, what I want to read. Like, am I in the mood to read it right now? Then I'll pick it up. That's my mid-year book check-in. I hope you enjoyed. I have been loving watching everyone else who I follow who's already done this tag. These are just so much fun to watch. I love being nosy into, like, what people's, like, least favorite book they've read so far is and stuff. So I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you're having a great day or night, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!